Hi, welcome to this presentation titled Digital Treasure Trove, Incorporating Online Surveys for Data Collection. The focus of this presentation is to explore the methodological issues in using online questionnaires for educational researchers, and as a result, suggest best practices. The study that I'm going to talk about in just a moment, it provides a practical backdrop to the theoretical concepts discussed, so they're easier to understand and they're not too abstract. The motivation for this study is the ease of online data collection. I'm sure many of you have used tools like Google Forms and SurveyMonkey, or at least heard of them, and they're great because they have decreased the technical ability to build web surveys. You don't really need to know any coding background. Hosting costs for your data is minimal, if nothing, and as a result, it improves your data collection. From this, educational researchers and researchers in general can easily collect quantitative and qualitative information online, which makes your data collection better and easier and good overall, if done properly. The context for this issue, this study, is a summative evaluation of a teacher training program. I surveyed pre-service teacher candidates about the quality of their teacher training program. Like many of these teacher training programs done at universities, the program combined both university-based theoretical education and as well as school-based practical teacher training. So it combined the two. So ideally, you would go to the university, learn about theory, then go to school, learn about practice, and then iteratively do both, back and forth until you become a better teacher trainee. There is, as you imagine, both an online and offline questionnaire for the training program, and there's a reason for this. First, I started off with an offline analog questionnaire, like a paper-based questionnaire, but unfortunately, the students that I was working with were geographically dispersed in their teacher training. They weren't all at one school or in a small neighborhood. They were scattered geographically. As a result, I hand-delivered questionnaires to the student colleges to help deal with this, but I found that wasn't quite enough in terms of increasing the response rate. So as a result, I engaged in creating an online and digital questionnaire. I'm using online digital to make it like more understandable, but it's basically an online questionnaire. This questionnaire followed the analog delivery of these analog surveys, and then increasing chances of eliciting random and representative responses from trainees. So it's meant to sort of improve the study. Luckily, their online and offline questionnaires have a complementary nature, and they can be collected together and maintain data integrity if you need to do this, like I did. Both these types of surveys are self-administered, meaning the user themselves administers them. They're relatively cheap in terms of online surveys, which makes them complementary as well. Multiple modes of data collection and mixed delivery methods increase participation more than either method alone. For those of you who like paper ones, can do them that way. If they like it online, they can also do it that way. So you can collect both of those together. And when they're preceded by email notification, online questionnaires achieve similar response rates as mail questionnaires. So that's a great feature. So if you give people notifications, they will ideally, and many times they will fill out the questionnaires. Something that was really important in terms of making the data useful across the two different types of surveys is to program parity in these online and offline surveys. And what I more specifically mean is I need to combine both the paper and online versions to increase response rates. As a result, to do this and make it responsible, accurate, and reliable, is that I wanted to have the online questionnaire look and behave like the offline paper version as much as possible. So as a result, the color scheme, the font used, and the user interface buttons, or just user interface in general, match the original offline paper version. And I'll describe that more in a few moments. So in terms of programming this parity again, the online questionnaire was based on the analog version. So in terms of usability, the online digital respondents could omit answers and limit information they provided for open-ended questions. This is similar to the offline paper version. So if you think about it, once you hand someone a paper version of a survey, they can skip questions, and for ones they answer, like say if they're writing up an answer qualitatively, they don't need to actually put a lot of information there. They could write very little, so I gave them that option. Also, the design was done, the online format was changed to resemble the original offline questionnaire as much as possible to ensure there's a similar visual appearance. I coded over 2,500 lines of HTML code for the final online questionnaire. As a result, as you can imagine, creating, modifying, and testing the code took several weeks and was highly labor intensive. So budget time. In terms of testing the online questionnaire, in terms of its usability and to maximize it, the survey tested it was further tested before I gave it out to widespread dissemination by students who had already filled out the offline paper questionnaire, and feedback was elicited. Basically, I was focusing on education students, and so what I did was find equivalent college students, but in a different discipline. So they're somewhat similar in terms of their backgrounds, et cetera, as much as they can be across a diverse university. Also, the respondents were invited to comment on their user experience to improve the questionnaire. So any type of feedback I try to incorporate that would improve the digital questionnaire. As a result, the online user experience mimicked the offline. I also followed up on the online questionnaire in terms of reliability. The coding of the questionnaire included online and offline source names so they could be distinguished for reliability checks. Basically, what I'm trying to communicate is that I made sure that I would know whether the source was online or offline, so in case I needed to compare. And also in terms of equality, both types of source type, whether it was online or offline, they're treated equally for processing and analysis. I didn't sort of say that one was more important or better than the other. In terms of observations, in terms of mixed mode data collection, using multiple modes of data collection, both online and offline questionnaires, and the data that resulted, it increased the overall participation rate by itself, as you would imagine. This confirm grows. If I just did online or just did offline, that will be less than if you used both together. In terms of email notifications that were used, this helped to increase respondent participation rate for online surveys, which is, you'd imagine, like you're given a notification, it should make some people who didn't do it respond when they might not have without the notification. And whether response rates to mail-based questionnaires were similar was unconfirmed. So I didn't test whether the mail-based questionnaires were similar in that way. Mixed mode data collection yielded similar answers across mode, confirming groves. So as I said before, I checked the two, and it seemed like the answers were similar. D, in terms of quality responses for open-ended questions between on and offline questionnaires, it revealed a little difference. So again, it made me feel good that the quality responses were good. And finally, the effort to achieve parity in user experience between on and offline questionnaires and appearance and mode of interaction likely aided in eliciting similar answer quality. By making the online as close to offline, it wasn't like people who were filling out the online were having a completely different user experience. It was mainly very similar, if not identical. In terms of programming and testing online questionnaires, in terms of equivalency, creating online questionnaire minimize user experience differences between online and offline version, fostering equivalent user response. So again, having them as similar as possible between online and offline, that made user response correspondingly similar. In terms of usability, respondents could omit answers and limit information for open-ended questions, similar to the filling in the paper version, and this minimized response differences. So I made it so that students could add or not add information on the digital one, which made it similar to the offline one, where sometimes you're not supervised, so sometimes the students skip questions or provide less information than they might if it was mandated. In terms of pro templates, I did not use pro templates because they were not as customizable as I needed them to be. In terms of design parity, the online user experience mimicked the offline, as I said before, in terms of color scheme, font, and user interface buttons. So it looked just very similar. In terms of testing across hardware and software platforms, depending on which hardware and software you're using, and as well as making the sample who are testing as similar as possible to the respondents helped to minimize potential user difficulties. Consistent policy, make sure that you are consistent for respondents. For example, if you're missing data, how do you treat that? In terms of a conclusion, or a couple of different conclusions, low cost, high quality online questionnaires made them an increasingly preferred way to collect data. Most of you know Google Forms, most of you know SurveyMonkey, so that we have these tools available, people increasingly prefer to use them. Some of the many issues that happen when you utilize online data collection have been surfaced by this study and what I shared with you. So this is especially true if you're doing any type of online data collection. But when you combine the two, it becomes more issues come out. And then finally, online surveys, they potentially enlarge study populations, and they help the researchers derive more accurate information beyond traditional offline surveys. So they can be really helpful. That is Digital Treasure Trove, incorporating online surveys for data collection. Thanks for watching.